And finally, as we begin to conclude this chapter, let me just take a little time to discuss this idea too. That whenever we think about our children, we recognize that in an age where we have personality profile assessments of how you parent, your parenting style, plus we have assessments of our children and of our own personality types. Here's just my little thumbnail, if you will, of personality types I've noticed in children that, we are all born with these, if you will, giftings or archetypes. It's important to notice because people's lives are affected by the way that we treat them. Sometimes we misinterpret gifting as liability, and what our culture affirms it may be done in a very lopsided way. There are 3 basic archetypes for our children, and it's important as parents, obviously, that we recognize the archetype or gifting in our children. The bent we cannot change, but we can work with it. We can shape it and influence and direct it. And we understand that once upon a time in psychological circles, it was very vogue 50 years ago to think that people are born a blank slate. But we're now recognizing in our more sophisticated personality tests that people are born kind of pre-wired, if you will, with personality types. And I find that whether you're a man or a woman, you're going to fit into one of these 3, and there will obviously be overlap. But one archetype is called the warrior archetype. The warrior, these are the men and the women who are physically gifted. And they often are people who serve and protect society. They actually use their bodies as part of their employment. Their gifting is physicality. And so whether it's a sports star or a policeman or a fireman, these are people, whether they are soldiers on the field, these are people who use their bodies, their physicality, to serve society in some way. And, the warrior archetype, if you're a guy and you're a jock in school, you'll be affirmed. But if you're a girl and you're a jock in school, you have a little more tolerance, but still people may bring what you like into question. And then the next archetype, the academic analytical archetype. That is, geeks in school, but then they rule. It's the kind of person whose brain wiring and gifting serves society, serves humanity as strategic thinkers. They're the problem solvers. They're the scientists. They're the teachers. They're the engineers. And they're the politicians. These are people who set up systems for society. They're the strategic thinkers and problem solvers. Their big brawn is their brain. Then the next archetype is the artist. And the artist has these categories. The artist is the big-hearted person. That's their big muscle, and the big-heartedness, if you will, shows up in these 3 key areas. The poet, their art will touch the world. So whether you're the actor or the singer, the playwright, the author, these are people whose art touches the soul and inspires man. Because it's one thing to have a society established by the academic, and it's another thing to protect that society if you are a soldier and a warrior. But to take society further and develop its potential, God has gifted the artist to speak to the soul of culture, not just create its systems or protect them. And then we also have the aesthetic artist. These are people who make the world beautiful. They are able to groom the landscaping of your lawn, your hair, your nails, your makeup, your clothing. These are people who literally take the world as it is and then they make it more beautiful, more appealing. They groom it. The aesthetic brings out the best, that potential of beauty that raw nature may not necessarily serve up. And then we have the empathizer. Now, most pastoral workers and counselors would find themselves in this category. Big-hearted people who are intuitive make the inner landscape in people's lives healthier. That's the role of the empathizer. Now, if you're a girl and you like to be a beauty technician and do other ladies' hair and nails, nobody questions your femininity and your health in gender identity. But if you're a guy and you like those things, there can be a second thought about that in society. It's not fair. Because some girls will be warriors and have no interest to be the secretary, but rather the CEO. Is she less a woman? And there are, some guys who are very gifted in creative communicative arts. Are they less masculine? Or did God impart that gift? And is it culture that is pagan and has lost its way in appreciating what God hath done. So how many times do we know what I'm getting to? Where there are so many young boys who were unaffirmed and so many young women who were unaffirmed because their gifting seemed out of sync with the prevailing thought of culture, and people in culture never even questioned whether their bias was right before God or not, and we carry it even into church culture. Because see, we're called out of pagan culture. God's not an American. He's not from any other country. And God, while he may reflect wisdom and creativity in all societies, because humans are fallen, we also create these corruptions and these biases that are not reflecting God's intent. But yet they play out in the way that people's lives and sense of self are affected, and that will affect your sexuality, your relationships, the way you conduct yourself at work, and how you feel in responding to your children as you attempt to have authority over them in parenting. So all of this does matter. And plus then there are parenting types too. Some parents are very low on the nurture scale, and they're very authoritarian and rigid. Other parents are very nurturing. And other parents are even quite permissive, but they tend to be higher on the nurturing scale. And then it's not only parenting types, but there are child types. Some children need more nurture than others. I wonder which type here probably would. I know in school when you'd say to one kid, "You sissy," that guy'd punch your lights out. But when people said it to me, I believed them and took it on board because of my brain wiring type. Apparently a gift from God, but not valued in the bias of culture. I was punished for not measuring up to the expectation. So our awareness of this, we can't maybe go out there and change all of society, but we are part of a new society, God's family, and church culture needs to be a safe corner for people to be well nurtured onto a path of health. And that if they don't get it in school or they can't get it in a broken home, here they can be fed the nurture to help them move forward and accomplish God's intent of development. Would you agree? And that's why I like to say, even if it happened, not for you or for your kid, it's still not too late. The need is not too great. God's the master of getting back on track that got derailed. He knows how to re-rail things again. And on that note, our session is complete. Thank you.